Good day, everyone. Welcome to another module reading in social psychology. Ayan. Yep. So this module answer the question of why people form and join groups and stresses the relationship between psychological needs and group formation. The topic of group influence focuses on the diffusion of responsibility, the individuation, panic, the risky shift, group groupthink, and anonymity. Anonymity. So the objectives we have the assess. Number one, assess the level of individual effort we can expect from members of the work groups. Number two is define the individuation and identify the circumstances that trigger it. Number three is describe and explain how interaction with like-minded people tends to amplify pre-existing attitude. So we have here the group. According to Marvin Shaw, 1981, group is two or more people who interact and influence one another. They refer to themselves as the us, contrary to them. Students who work individually in a room cannot be called as a group because they may be physically together, but they are not interacting group and don't refer to themselves as us. Hence, they are just a collection of individuals. Moreover, people who do not have a presence to one another might influence each other. For example, people who perceive themselves as fans of a certain basketball team may refer to themselves as us. Being in a group helps an individual to meet their needs, such as need for affiliation or to be with others, need for achievement, and need for social identity. Johnson's and others, 2006. Social facilitation. Affected by the presence of others. So generally, social facilitation takes place when people perform tasks better when other people are present. Again, social facilitation takes place when people perform tasks better when other people are present. Experiment found out that others' presence influenced the speed and accuracy of one's work by Alport, F.H. 1920, Dashiell 1930, and Travis 1925. On the other hand, some individuals work worse when others are present. Studies shows that others' presence may decrease one's efficiency in the analysis. By Dashiell, 1930, Pessin, 1933, Pessin and Husband, 1933. Therefore, the mere presence of others can facilitate or hinders the performance of an individual. These principles depends on the task given to the individual. If the task is easy or makes the person excited, then other presence can facilitate one's performance. On the other hand, if the task is difficult or complex, the performance of the individual might decrease. For example, in other presence, an artistic person can confidently create a masterpiece in a short period, yet he might have difficulty doing analytical activities. Crowding, the presence of many others. Other people's presence influence people, but the effect may increase with the number of people by Jackson and Latane 1981 and Knowles 1983. Some people perform better if the crowd is larger, and some people perform better off than if the uh, if the if the crowd is fewer. This implies that although a speaker masters his speech, he shatters more in front of the audience than when speaking in front of few people by Miller 1986. Performance despite the presence of others also depends on personality of a person. If a person is an introvert, then he might perform worse if there are people around him. And a friendly person performs better around many others by Schiffer-Bauer, and Schiavo 1976 and Thomas and Storms 1977. The proximity between people in a crowd is also a factor in one's performance. Study shows that people who sit close together are more likely to increase their performance than people who sit far away from each other. Thus, crowding can also enhance arousal, which facilitates or hinders one's action. Why are we aroused in the presence of others? Yeah, why? If people are skilled at a certain task, then they are most likely to be aroused or energized to be their best in front of people. Factors of creating arousal. Number one, evaluation apprehension. Individual became apprehensive because they thought that other people may judge them. Hence, there would be an enhancement in their dominant response, whether it increases their performance or not, if they were evaluated. Moreover, self-consciousness can also interfere with one's performance. For example, a baseball player is more likely to miss the free throw if he would analyze their body movements first. Number two is distractions. Individual becomes distracted when he is wondering how other people would react them. So paying attention to the task while paying attention to others might afflict one's mind and may cause arousal. This arousal comes from the presence of others and non-human distraction around us, such as noise. Number three is mere presence. Mere presence of others influence one's behavior, which produce arousal even without evaluation, apprehension, and distraction. Social loafing. Social loafing. Do individuals exert less effort in a group? In a social facilitation, people are working toward an individual goal and can be evaluated individually. If a group works for a common goal and not individually accountable for their efforts, social loafing may occur. Social loafing is a tendency to exert less effort when they are in a group for a common goal. One great example is the game of tug of war. A player would exert less effort because he believed that there are many in the group who would exert their best effort. Study shows that if they were observed as a group, one would exert less effort, yet they still benefit from it, like free ride. But if they were monitored individually, they become more energetic and exert more effort into their task. In social loafing, evaluation apprehension decreases, as they believe that they were only evaluated if they perform alone. If they perform with a group, responsibilities are distributed across the members. They believe that they are not accountable alone and cannot evaluate their efforts. Therefore, if they are being observed and increases their evaluation concerns, social facilitation occurs. If they are within the crowd and decrease their evaluation concerns, social loafing occurs. So, to motivate a person, whether they are within the group or not, their effort should be identifiable. For example, there should be individual grading in a group project so that everyone would perform. And there will be no free riders. People may also exert more effort in a group when there is an important goal, significant rewards, and existing team spirit. The individuation when the people lose their sense of self in a group. The individuation is a tendency of losing one's sense of self and evaluation apprehension in response to group norms. Group influences a person to do unrestrained behaviors. It can develop excitement to do something bigger than the usual. They are more likely to abandon normal restraints and lose their sense of self to become responsive to the group norms. Group size. If a group consists of many members, members become unidentifiable because they focus more on the situation because the group norms, not on themselves. Okay, the situation within the group norms, not on themselves. A person, again, I will going to reread it. Group size. If a group consists of many members, members become unidentifiable because they focus more on the situation within the group norms, not on themselves. A person within a large group loses their sense of identity. They can elicit unrestrained behavior because they think that everyone is doing it anyway. They are more likely to attribute their behavior to the situation than their own choices. For example, students were not allowed to wear civilians at their events, but many of them decided to wear civilians on that day. One would wear civilians because he would think that everyone would wear it anyway, and he is not the only one who would be reprimanded. Next is physical anonymity or physical anonymity. Physical anonymity. The analysis or the analysis shows that one becomes less self-conscious, more group-conscious, and more responsive to the situation, whether it's negative or positive, only if they are anonymous. For example, when there is an incidence of cyberbullying, anonymous people are more likely to be rude than people who are known to them. On the positive side, an experiment was conducted asking an individual to administer electric shocks to the Confederates. Finding shows that they are less likely to administer a shock if they are anonymous than participants which names are and personal identities were stressed. Next is arousing and distracting activities. Activities that makes people become hype or distracted, such as group shouting, singing, clapping, or dancing, might reduce one's self-consciousness and perform more disinhibited behavior. When people act similarly, they think that they feel the same and they have the same perception. Next is diminished self-awareness. Group experiences that diminish self-consciousness tends to disconnect behavior from attitude. People with self-awareness elicit self-control and their action reflects their attitude. Studies reveal that an individual with no sense of self is less likely to perform restrained behaviors, less self-regulated, and more likely to be impulsive and responsive to the situation by Daner, 1980, Prentice, Dunn, and Rogers, 1980 to 1989. This implies that the individuation decreases activities that may increase self-awareness, such as acting in front of the mirror and camera, small towns lights, large tag names, etc. Next is group polarization. Do groups intensify our opinions? Group polarization is a tendency of people to be more extreme in their opinions and decisions than their actual appeals. The case of the risky shift. James Stoner, 1961, tests if the groups are more cautious than individuals in this experiment. Stones create a dilemma wherein the participants should decide what advice they will give to a person in the situation. The problem given to them is that a writer has come to an idea that is the potential to be significant novel. If she could pursue this concept, it should significantly impact literature and boost her career. On the other hand, if her works fail, she would probably waste her time and energy without remuneration. Without remuneration. Again, without remuneration. The participants would have to rate on scale of 1 to 10, or 10 is the highest, if the writer should pursue her idea. After they rated the writer, participants were asked to join the group discussion on what would be great advice for the writer. Results shows that the group decision from the group discussion was usually riskier. This implied that risky shift occurs not only when deciding alone, but after a discussion, as they are more likely to alter their decision. Next is group influence. Group influences. Informational influence. It is an influence that results from the gathered evidence of reality. They would be sharing of own viewpoints on group discussions, discussion of common knowledge, and all include persuasive arguments. From these discussions, one gathers information about the reality of the situations. Upon hearing each other's opinions, one might shift his position. Moreover, active participation is significant during the discussion, as this is more likely to produce attitude change than passive listening. The more group members repeat one another's ideas, the more they rehearse and validate them. By Brower and others, 1995. Next is normative influence. It is an influence of the desire of a person to be accepted and commended. It involves a comparison with other people. A person evaluates his position by comparing it to others' viewpoints. Also, for a person to be liked and admired, he will express stronger opinions and arguments. However, pluralistic ignorance may occur, as this is a false thinking of other people's point of view or how they would react. For example, two persons always wanted to go out with each other, yet they are afraid of who should make the first move, and they thought that the other would probably don't like his interests. Next, groupthink. Do groups hinder or assist good decision? Groupthink is coined by Janis, 1972, which result in faulty or irrational actions due to the influence of a group pressure. A group is more focused on their cohesiveness to the point that they ignore important information. It most often occurs when the group is cohesive, is isolated from potential outsiders, has taught the invulnerability, infallibility, or both? Has potential pressure to conform, has a leader who directs decision he or she favors, and have gatekeepers who keep information from other groups. Next, symptoms of groupthink. Groupthink occurs within a group. They are less likely to seek and discuss other information and alternative possibilities that could help them. Thus, they may lead to poorer decision. Under this is the group member overestimate their groups might and right. Again, group members overestimate their group might and right. Illusions of invulnerability. Group members develop excessive optimism and encourage taking risks. Unquestioned belief in the group's morality. Group members have their own belief in the morality of their group and ignore the consequence of their action, especially ethical and moral issues. Next is group member become close-minded. Rationalization. Group members become close-minded and they rationalize challenges by defending their decision and ideas. Next is stereotype view of the opponent. They view other people who are against them as too evil to negotiate and too weak to argue against the planned initiative. So they are close-minded. Next is group members were influenced by pressures toward uniformity. Under this is the conformity pressure. Group members disregard the ideas of other people who question them through personal sarcasm. Next is self-censorship. Group members elicit a sense of self-censorship through withholding their misgivings since they feel uncomfortable with disagreements. The illusion of anonymity. The illusion of anonymity was developed for or from having self-censorship and conforming to the consensus. And this consensus provides a group decisions. Next is mind guards. Group members insulate the group from information that may question the effectiveness and morality of their decisions. It protects group leaders from disagreeable facts. Next is preventing groupthink. In a group, it is very important to have leaders who are open to the ideas of these could help them to be more cohesive and improve decision. Sometimes two or more heads are better than one. So according to Janice, 1982, groupthink should be prevented in a group. Being partial, neutral on your standing. Do not go along with any positions. Next is encourage open discussion for critical evaluation. Assign at least one member for the devil's advocate, the one who question and disagree with the group. Open the group from the critics from outside groups. Before implementing the decision, gather the members for second chance meeting to assure and amend doubts. Next is group problem solving. In solving a problem within a group decisions should surpass individual decisions by evaluating each member's skills and knowledge and gather information from them. Studies reveal that it is true that two heads are better than one. Several heads critiquing one another can avoid cognitive bias and produce good quality ideas by McLean and others, 1995, Wright and others, 1990. On the other hand, research shows that group members are more likely to develop effective decisions if they encourage their members to debate ideas than brainstorm. As these develop creative thinking and various possible solutions. Moreover, group discussions makes members feel more productive in providing ideas, but sometimes working alone usually can provide more good ideas than people in a group, especially if it is a large group. Some members in the large group may become free rider or the social loafing theory and just go along with other efforts. One might also make others feel more apprehensive and voice out unnecessary ideas, normative influence theory. Since they might cause production blocking, one might lose their opinions while waiting for their turn to suggest. Nijstad and Strobe, 2006. However, Vincent Brown and Paul Paulus 2002 identified a way to enhance brainstorming. Number one, combined group and solitary brainstorming. Brainstorming is more likely to be effective. It is preceded by solo brainstorming. This is for the member to list down possible ideas and keep the brainstorming flowing. Next is have group members interact by writing. This is to avoid losing their thoughts while waiting to their turn. Next is incorporate electronic brainstorming. This is to avoid verbal traffic jams during brainstorming in a large group. Let them generate ideas on network computers. So we have here the glossary. What is group? Two or more people who interacts with an influence one another for longer than a few moments and perceive one another as us. Next is social loafing. The tendency for people to exert less effort when they pool their efforts toward a common goal than when they are individually accountable. Number 3 is free riders. People who benefit from the group but give little in return. Yan yung mga nagbibigay lang ng pamerienda sa panel. Next is the individuation. Loss of self-awareness and self-evaluation apprehension occur in a group situation that foster responsiveness to group norms, good or bad. Next, number 4 is group polarization. Group produce enhancement of members' pre-existing tendencies, a strengthening of the members' average tendency, not a split within the group. Next is social comparison. Evaluating one's opinion and abilities by comparing oneself with others. Next is pluralistic ignorance, a false impression of what most other people are thinking or feeling or how they are responding. Next, groupthink, the mode of thinking that person engage in when concurrence seeking becomes so dominant in a cohesive in-group that it tends to override realistic appraisal of alternative courses of action. Irving Janis, 1971. Next is leadership, the process by which certain group members motivate and guide the group. Next is transformational leadership, leadership that enabled by a leader's vision and inspiration exert significant influence. So we have the reference here from Mayers G 2012, Social Psychology 11th edition by McGraw-Hill, Higher Education, and Mayers G 2012, Exploring Social Psychology 7th edition, McGraw-Hill, Higher Education. That's all for our topic in our subject, Social Psychology. Hanggang dito na lang muna ang ating module reading for group influence. Maraming salamat po at good night sa ating lahat.